The void of space was silent, endless, and cold. Yet inside that silence, alien scanners hummed with nervous energy. The fleet of the Sarathi Alliance drifted near the edge of a dead star system, their ships sleek and black, their eyes locked on the data flashing across glowing screens. Something had been detected, something that should not exist. A young Sarathi officer whispered, his voice shaking. "It is them, the humans. They are here." The commander's eyes narrowed, his scaled hands gripping the rail. "What did you see?" he asked, his tone sharp. The officer pointed at the scans. The void bent, not with gravity, not with light, but with something we cannot explain. "We saw echoes, reflections where none should be," the commander hissed softly, a sound of fear. Only one thing could bend reality like that. Metamaterials. The crew whispered the word as if it carried a curse. Every race knew the legend of metamaterials. They were said to twist space, bend energy, make weapons vanish into nothing. Only the ancients had touched such secrets, and they had died out long ago. No living species had mastered them. No one. Until now. The commander turned, his voice low. "Humans, reckless creatures, they have touched the forbidden." The crew shivered, their minds racing with dread. If humans had metamaterials, then no weapon, no fleet, no empire was safe. The officer's claws tapped nervously on the screen. "They did not hide it, Commander. They let us detect them." The commander's eyes widened. "What?" "They wanted us to see," the officer whispered, as if they were daring us. The silence of the void pressed heavy against the ship. Every Sarathi felt it, as if the empty space itself was no longer empty. There was power there, unseen, but present. It echoed faintly through their machines, through their bones. The void had begun to sing. Lyra, a young Sarathi technician, stared. At the readings, she had studied weapons all her life, but never had she seen anything like this. "Commander," she said softly, "if they truly control metamaterials, then they are more than soldiers. They are reshaping the battlefield itself." The commander turned his gaze toward the darkness beyond the screens. The human ships were not visible, not truly. Only faint ripples betrayed them. Distortions in the endless black, like shadows that should not exist. Another officer shouted, panic in his voice. "Their silence is wrong. They send no signals, no threats, no warnings." The commander frowned, his chest tight with unease. Humans were loud, chaotic, always shouting their presence into the stars. But here, they waited in silence. And the silence was worse than any weapon. The void pulsed again. A faint echo that rippled across the sensors. The crew flinched, some gripping the rails, others covering their ears even though no sound touched them. Still, they felt it, like a heartbeat deep within the cold black. Lyra whispered, "It is..." "As if the void itself answers them," the commander growled, anger mixing with fear. "Do not speak such things. No mortal race commands the void." But deep inside, he wondered, what if humans were different? What if they had found the forbidden truth? The council of the fleet gathered on the command deck, their faces grim. "Should we strike first?" one asked, "before they unleash it?" "Should we retreat?" another said, "before we are buried?" But the commander shook his head slowly. "No. If we fire, they will only show us what they can do. And if we flee, they will follow. Humans are predators. They never let prey escape." The younger officers trembled, their eyes darting to the void beyond. There were no human voices, no human faces, only the faint shimmering ripples that betrayed their hidden presence. It felt less like ships and more like ghosts. The silence pressed harder, the echoes rolling across their sensors. Steady, unstoppable. It was like a drumbeat before war, Lyra leaned closer to her console, her voice barely more than a whisper. They want us to be afraid. They want us to know we are seen. They want us to feel small. The commander stared at the void, his heart heavy. And for the first time in his long career, he did feel small. He turned to his officers and spoke with a voice that trembled despite his will. If the humans truly have metamaterials, then they do not need to fire. The void itself will fight for them. The crew fell silent. The hum of the ship seemed weaker. The stars beyond dimmer. All they could see, all they could feel, was the presence of humans hiding inside the rippling dark, and the echoes that rolled through the void, steady, powerful, endless. The void had always been silent, but now, with humans inside it, the void echoed with power. First contact of fear. The Sarathi fleet floated in silence. The stars burned cold around them, but none of the crew looked outside. All eyes were fixed on the scans, on the faint ripples in the void, ripples that should not exist, yet moved like whispers of power. The commander stood at the center of the deck, his claws tapping against the rail. The crew waited for his order, their bodies tense, their hearts pounding. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. Open a channel. Speak to them. Static filled the air for a moment, then cleared. The face of a human appeared on the holoscreen, a man with calm eyes and a steady voice, his uniform simple, his posture relaxed, yet his presence carried weight. The Sarathi felt it in their bones. This is Captain Daniel of the United Terran Fleet, the human said. You have detected us as we wished. The crew gasped, their voices whispering in disbelief. As we wished, one muttered. They wanted to be found. The commander stepped forward, his throat dry. Human, he said. You carry metamaterials. You carry the forbidden. Surrender them now, or face the wrath of the Sarathi Alliance. His words echoed across the deck, sharp and heavy. But Daniel did not flinch, his face calm, his tone even. You think detection means power, Daniel said slowly. But power is not in being seen. Power is in what you do with what you hold. The crew shivered, the words simple, yet heavy with meaning. The human spoke not like a man under threat, but like one delivering truth, the commander hissed, anger flashing in his eyes. You cannot play with such things. They will destroy you as they destroyed the ancients. Daniel leaned closer, his voice steady. Perhaps, but we are not the ancients. We are human, and we do not fear what others called impossible. The crew exchanged nervous looks. His calmness was worse than shouting, worse than threats. It was the calm of someone who knew something they did not. The void itself seemed to hum in agreement, faint echoes rolling across their scanners. Lyra, the young technician, whispered to herself, They are not hiding because they are weak. They are hiding because they are ready. Her words made the crew shiver again. The thought that humans wanted to be found was terrifying. The commander tried again, his voice sharper. If you do not surrender your ships and your technology, we will destroy you. For a moment, the void was silent. Then Daniel spoke, his voice like iron wrapped in calm. You will try, and you will fail. The crew froze, their hearts pounding in fear. No other race had ever spoken to the Sarathi like this. Every world feared their fleets, every species bowed to their strength. But here stood one human, smiling, refusing, defying, and worse, he spoke as if he had already won. The void pulsed again, a faint tremor on the scans. The Sarathi flinched, some covering their ears, though no sound touched them. But they felt it, a vibration in their bones. The void itself was echoing, carrying human power across its endless dark. Daniel's eyes narrowed, his voice softer now. You detected our metamaterials, but you only saw the surface, The crew's blood ran cold. The surface, he had said. If this was only the surface, then what lay beneath? The commander's chest tightened, his instincts screaming at him to retreat. But pride chained him. He could not show weakness before his crew. He straightened, forcing his voice steady. Then you leave us no choice, human. If you will not surrender, we will strike first. Daniel gave a small nod, his face calm as ever. Do as you must, he said. We will be waiting. The channel closed. The screen went black. Only the ripples in the void remained, stronger now, heavier, like the calm before a storm. The crew murmured in fear. He does not fear us, one whispered. He wanted us to threaten him. Another said. Lyra's hands shook as she stared at her console. No, she whispered. He wanted us to see that our threats mean nothing. The commander growled, his tail lashing in frustration. Ready weapons, he ordered, his voice shaking. The crew obeyed, though their hands trembled. For the first time in their history, they were about to fight an enemy that did not fear them, an enemy that smiled in silence, an enemy that made the void itself echo. The human refusal. The Sarathi fleet prepared for battle, weapons charged, shields raised, engines burning quietly in the dark. The crew moved with practiced precision, yet fear hung heavy in the air. Every eye drifted back to the scanners, where ripples still spread through the void, ripples that marked the hidden presence of human ships. The commander paced at the center of the deck, his tail swaying with anger. They mock us, he hissed. They invite war. We will show them the price of defiance. His officers nodded, but their eyes betrayed doubt. None of them had forgotten the calm human face on the hollow screen, that quiet confidence, that refusal to bow. It lingered like poison in their minds. Lyra, the young technician, whispered softly to herself. They should be afraid, but they are not. Why? Her console flickered again, strange pulses dancing across her screen. Every scan came back twisted, warped, bent by unseen forces. No matter how many times she adjusted, the readings refused to clear. The humans were not hiding with stealth. They were bending reality itself. Suddenly, the channel opened again. The hollow screen flickered, and Captain Daniel's face appeared once more, his eyes calm, his tone steady. You aim your weapons at us, he said, but you misunderstand. We are not here to hide. We are here to remind you. The commander stepped forward, his voice sharp with rage. Remind us of what, human? Remind us that your species plays with forces it cannot control. Daniel's lips curved into the faintest smile. No, to remind you that humans do not surrender. The words struck the crew like a thunderclap. For a moment, no one moved, no one breathed. The commander's claws scraped against the rail, his fury boiling. You dare defy the Sarathi Alliance. Daniel's voice did not rise, but every syllable carried weight. We defy anyone who believes fear is power. The crew shivered, unease tightening their chests. It was not just what he said. It was how he said it, as if the outcome was already decided, as if the Sarathi had walked into a game they did not understand. The commander roared, You are reckless fools. The ancients destroyed themselves with metamaterials, and you will too. Daniel leaned closer to the screen, his gaze unflinching. We are not the ancients. We are human. And when others fall, we rise. When others bow, we stand. When others quit, we refuse. Lyra's breath caught, her hands shaking over her console. She had never heard such words, never seen such unbroken will. Her people valued caution, surrender, and survival. But this human spoke as if survival was not enough, as if victory could be carved from the jaws of death. The void pulsed again, sensors rippling with unseen echoes. The crew flinched, their eyes darting to their screens. "What is that?" "One," Officer whispered. But Daniel only smiled faintly. "You call it the void, empty and cold, but to us, it is an ocean. And oceans echo with those strong enough to enter them." The crew exchanged nervous glances, their fear deepening. Even the commander faltered for a breath, his anger struggling against the weight of uncertainty. He tried to steady his voice, but it cracked as he said, "You cannot stand against the Alliance. Our fleets will crush you." Daniel's eyes narrowed, his tone sharper now. "Try, and you will learn what it means when humans refuse to fall." The screen went black. The channel closed, but the silence that followed was heavier than before. The crew muttered, voices filled with unease. "He does not fear us. He dares us to strike. He believes they cannot lose." The commander slammed his claws against the rail, his voice rising in fury. "Enough. They are nothing but mortals. Reckless mortals. We will burn them from the void." But even as he spoke, his chest was tight. Deep inside, he felt the same fear that gnawed at his crew. Lyra whispered so quietly that only she heard her own words. "No, they are not reckless. They are certain. They know something we do not." The void pulsed again, louder this time. The echoes rolled across the sensors like invisible thunder. The crew shivered as the rhythm reached their bones. It was not just detection anymore. It was a warning. The commander straightened, his voice sharp. "Ready all weapons. Target the ripples. Prepare to fire." The crew obeyed, their hands moving, though their bodies shook. The void around them felt heavier, darker, alive with unseen power. And in that silence, one truth pressed against every Sarathi heart. Humans had refused, and refusal was more dangerous than any weapon. First attempts, the Sarathi fleet moved into position. Dozens of ships glided across the void, their weapons glowing with lethal power. The crew whispered in fear, but the commander barked orders, his voice sharp. "Target the ripples, unleash the first strike." Engines roared, weapons charged. The void lit up with beams of energy. Bolts of plasma shot forward, bright lines cutting through the darkness. They slammed into the rippling distortions where the human ships hid. The crew held their breath, expecting explosions, fire, and death, but nothing happened. The beams bent, twisting in impossible arcs. They curved away as if space itself had been rewritten. Some vanished completely, swallowed by the darkness. Others bent back, spiraling harmlessly into empty void. The Sarathi gasped, in horror. "It ate our fire," one shouted. "No, it drank it," another cried. The commander snarled, his claws digging into the rail. "Again! Hit them harder!" More beams tore through the void. Missiles followed, their trails glowing as they raced forward. But every shot curved. Every missile spun into madness. Explosions lit up far away from their target, leaving only silence where humans waited. The void itself seemed to laugh, bending everything away. Lyra's console flickered wildly, her heart pounding. "This is not defense," she whispered. "This is something else." Her commander snapped. "Explain." She swallowed hard, her voice shaking. "They are not blocking us. They are shaping the battlefield. They are rewriting space." The commander's blood ran cold, but pride forced him forward. "No shield can hold forever. Continue the assault." Yet even as he barked the order, doubt ate at him. What if there truly was no shield? What if the void itself fought for them? On the scanners, the ripples deepened. The distortions spread, forming patterns like waves across an unseen ocean. The crew whispered in dread. "They are not hiding," one said. "They are moving." Another added, "No, they are guiding." The void. Then came the first counter. Not a weapon, not a missile, not fire, just silence. The void pulsed, the echoes rolled, and suddenly half the Sarathi scanners went black. Alarms screamed, systems flickered, crews shouted in panic. "We've lost targeting," one cried. "My controls are blind," another yelled. The commander's voice cracked. "How? They fired nothing," Lyra whispered, her eyes wide. "They don't need to fire. They bend the signals themselves. They blind us with the void." The crew trembled, their hearts pounding. Never before had they faced an enemy who fought with silence. The humans had not fired a single shot, yet their fleets staggered in confusion. It was as if the void had chosen its side. Another wave of plasma was unleashed in desperation. This time, the beams curved back. They spun around the ripples and returned toward the Sarathi fleet. Explosions ripped across two ships, their shields shattering, their hulls torn apart. The crew cried out in terror. "They turned our weapons against us." The commander's tail lashed in rage, but his voice faltered. "This cannot be. No technology can do this." Lyra's hands shook as she stared at the impossible readings. Her voice broke as she whispered, "No technology, Commander. Only humans." The void pulsed again, stronger. Now, the echoes rolled across the sensors, deep and steady like a heartbeat. Every Sarathi felt it in their bones, a rhythm that did not belong to emptiness. It was the sound of power, the sound of a race that refused to be broken. The commander gritted his teeth, his pride warring with fear. "They are only mortals." He growled, "They bleed like the rest." But his words felt hollow, because nothing in the void bled except his fleet. Lyra looked at the shadows on her screen, ripples that refused to vanish, shapes hidden in silence. She whispered, almost to herself, "They are not fighting us with weapons. They are fighting us with will." The crew turned to her in shock, but none could deny her words. The void echoed, again, this time louder, heavier, undeniable. The Sarathi ships trembled as if the darkness itself pressed against their hulls, and through that silence came the truth. The humans had not even begun to fight. The breakthrough. The void was no longer silent. It pulsed with power, invisible waves rolling across the battlefield. The Sarathi ships staggered, blinded by broken sensors, their weapons useless. Yet no human shot had been fired, only ripples, only echoes, only silence that struck harder than fire. On the command deck, the Sarathi commander's claws dug deep into the rail. "This is a trick," he hissed. "They cannot hold it forever." But even he could hear the weakness in his own words. His fleet was stumbling, his crew drowning in fear, and the humans had not even revealed themselves fully, Lyra's console. Flickered again. She gasped as strange new signals appeared. Patterns too perfect, rhythms too exact. "They are not defending," she whispered. "They are shaping." Her commander snapped. "Speak clearly, technician." Lyra's voice trembled but carried the weight of truth. "They are not just bending our weapons away. They are bending the void itself." As if to prove her words, the ripples changed. The distortion spread outward, weaving like threads across the darkness. Stars blurred, light twisted. Space itself seemed to ripple like water. The Sarathi fleet was caught in the middle of an unseen ocean. Every scan came back wrong. Every signal bent in endless loops. The crew shouted in panic, "We've lost navigation. We cannot see the stars. We are trapped." Then the channel opened again. The human captain appeared, his face calm, his voice steady. "You believed metamaterials were only for hiding," Daniel said. "You thought detection meant victory." He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "But you never understood this is not camouflage. This is control." The crew trembled at his words. Control, the most feared word in the galaxy. Weapons could be resisted, fleets could be matched, but to control the battlefield itself was godlike. The commander snarled, forcing courage into his voice. "You cannot hold forever. Your bodies are weak. Your machines will break." Daniel's lips curved into a faint smile. Machines break, bodies fall, but humans do not stop. That is why we win. The echoes rolled again, heavier, deeper. Sarathi screens went dark one by one. Their ships floated blind in the void. Some fired wildly, their beams bent back into their own shields. Explosions rippled through the fleet, chaos spreading faster than command. Lyra stared at her console, her heart pounding. The humans had not touched them with a single shot, and yet the Sarathi fleet was falling apart. She whispered, "They fight with silence, they fight with echoes." Her commander slammed his fist, his pride crumbling. "Silence is not a weapon," he roared. But the void pulsed again, as if laughing at his denial. "The human captain's voice returned, calm and steady. You wanted to see what we carry. Now you see the first layer." The crew froze at his words. "The first layer," Lyra repeated, her voice breaking. If this was only the beginning, then what lay deeper? The ripples grew stronger, now visible even to naked eyes on the viewports. The darkness bent and twisted. Stars stretched into lines. The void itself seemed alive, echoing with strange patterns. It was no longer emptiness. It was human territory. The crew whispered in terror. They make the void itself theirs. They reshape space as if it obeys them. A sudden tremor rocked the Sarathi flagship. One of the outer ships exploded, torn apart not by fire, but by its own misfired weapons. The energy had bent back upon it, feeding its own destruction. The crew shouted, some in fear, some in disbelief. But all of them knew the truth. They were being unmade by their own power. Daniel's face filled the holoscreen one last time. His voice was calm, yet sharp enough to cut steel. "You detected our metamaterials," he said, "but detection means nothing. You see reflections and shadows, not truth. The void itself carries us, and the void does not forget." The channel went black. The echoes rolled again, louder than before. The Sarathi commander staggered, his pride collapsing under the weight. Of fear he could feel it now, not in his sensors, not in his ship, but in his bones. The humans had taken the void, and the void was echoing with them. The struggle, the void shook with power. Ripples spread like waves, bending light and bending fire. The Sarathi fleet trembled, their crews shouting in fear. Weapons no longer obeyed, scanners no longer guided. It was as if the battlefield itself had turned against them. The commander roared, his pride forcing him forward. "Unleash everything, all ships, all fire. Drown them." The fleet obeyed, their ships glowing with fury. Missiles streaked across the dark. Beams of plasma tore the black. The stars themselves seemed to vanish beneath the storm of weapons, but the humans did not flinch. The ripples thickened. The echoes grew, energy twisted, weapons curved, missiles turned back. Explosions bloomed not around the humans but inside Sarathi lines. Their own power betrayed them. Their own fury burned them. Lyra gripped her console, her eyes wide with horror. "They cannot win like this," she whispered. "They are killing themselves." The commander's claws dug deep into the rail. "Silence. This is only chaos. Humans cannot hold against such fire." Yet even he saw the truth. The humans had not fired a single shot, and still the Sarathi fleet bled. One ship after another cracked under its own fire. Plasma bolts bent back into their shields. Missiles curved into the ships that had launched them. The void lit with fire, not from human attack, but from Sarathi desperation. It was a war they had begun, but the void refused to let them win. Daniel's voice echoed through the comms again, calm and steady. "You believe numbers win wars. You believe power is fire, but you forget. The void listens." The crew trembled, their hearts pounding with terror. Lyra whispered, "They are not fighting us. They are using us against ourselves." Another Sarathi cruiser exploded, its wreckage spinning into the black. Screams filled the comms as ships begged for orders, but the commander could not answer. Every word stuck in his throat. Pride told him to fight. Fear told him to flee. Both felt useless in the face of this storm. The echoes rolled again, stronger, heavier. It was no longer only sound. It was pressure. The Sarathi felt it in their bones, in their hearts. The void pressed against them, carrying the weight of human will. It was not silence anymore. It was thunder. Lyra's screen flickered with impossible readings. Her hands shook as she whispered. They are not only bending space, they are bending energy, bending cause itself. Nothing follows our laws anymore. The commander snarled, desperate. Then break their laws, overload them, crush them with raw power. He ordered a full bombardment, every ship pouring energy into the dark. The void blazed with fury, beams, fire, and explosions filling the black, yet none of it touched the humans. Every shot bent, every blast twisted. Some simply vanished into rippling dark. Others curved back and struck Sarathi ships. The fleet screamed in chaos as friendly fire tore through them. Daniel's voice came again. Sharper. Now, you cannot break us by breaking yourselves. The void has already chosen. The commander roared in rage. You are only men. You are not gods. You cannot claim the void. But his words fell empty, because the void itself echoed with human power. Every pulse, every tremor carried their defiance. Lyra turned to her commander, tears in her eyes. They are not just fighting us. They are showing us. They are proving what humans are. The commander growled. And what are they? She whispered, her voice shaking. They are the echo that never dies. Another wave of fire ripped across the battlefield, and again, it turned back. Another Sarathi ship broke apart, its hull scattered into the dark. The fleet shrank, hope crumbling, fear spreading like fire. And still the humans did not fire. Still, they waited, hidden, patient, unbroken. The commander staggered, his chest tight. He saw the truth now, though his pride fought to deny it. This was not a battle of weapons. This was a battle of will. And the humans had more will than any fleet could crush. Daniel's voice returned one last time, calm, but sharp as a blade. You fight the void, and the void fights you. But we are part of it now. You cannot kill what echoes forever. The crew trembled, their claws shaking, their hearts breaking. Even the commander felt the weight of defeat, not from destruction, but from the endless certainty that nothing could bend the humans. The struggle was no longer theirs. The struggle belonged to the void, and the void echoed with human power. The battlefield was chaos. Sarathi ships drifted in broken silence, fire burning across the void. Some were torn apart by their own weapons. Others floated blind without engines. The once mighty fleet was now only a graveyard of sparks and shadows, and still, the humans had not fired a single shot. Their ships remained hidden within the ripples, unseen but felt. The void pulsed with their presence, steady and unbroken. Every echo reminded the Sarathi that they were not the hunters anymore. They were the prey. On the flagship, the commander stood frozen, his claws dug into the rail, his eyes wide with disbelief. How? He whispered, his voice hollow. We were stronger. We were many. How do they win with silence? No one answered him. Even his crew bowed their heads, their voices gone. Fear had stolen their words. Lyra sat at her console, her hands trembling. The screens showed only distortions now. The void alive with impossible patterns. She whispered to herself. They are not using weapons. They are using themselves. Their will. Her heart ached. Not only with fear, but with awe. She had seen power before, but never like this. Power that bent space without fire. power that echoed in the bones of all who heard it. Then the comms flickered again. Daniel's face appeared, calm, steady, unstoppable. You came to strike us, to take what you feared. But you never understood, he said. You detected our metamaterials, but you only saw reflections, shadows, the surface. He leaned closer, his eyes sharp as blades. The void does not bend for you. It bends with us, because we do not give up. We do not surrender, and we do not break. The words sank into the crew like thunder. Even the commander felt his knees weaken. This was not arrogance. It was truth. They had fought, they had bled, but the humans had stood unbroken. And now the void itself seemed to stand with them, another. Ripples spread across the darkness, but this time it was not chaos. It was order. The explosions faded, the echoes slowed, the human ships finally revealed themselves. Dark silhouettes gliding forward, glowing faintly with bent starlight. They looked less like machines and more like shadows carved into reality itself. The Sarathi crew gasped, their fear turning into silence. They had expected monsters, but what they saw was worse. Humans standing calm, wrapped in power they should not have. Power that came not from machines alone, but from will. The commander tried to speak, but his voice cracked. You... What are you? Daniel's eyes narrowed, his tone like iron. We are human, and we do not stop. The crew trembled, their hearts pounding. They knew the truth now. The humans had not won because of their ships, or their technology. They had won because they refused to lose. Every echo in the void carried that defiance. Every ripple whispered the same word. Unbroken. One by one, the Sarathi ships lowered their weapons. Some shut down their engines, drifting helplessly. The commander closed his eyes, shame burning. In his chest, he had commanded countless victories. But today he had been broken without a single shot. And worse, he knew why. Because humans never gave up. Daniel's voice returned one last time. You came to end us, but you only ended yourselves. Remember this. We are not gods. We are not demons. We are only human, and that is enough. The channel closed. Silence filled the void again, but the silence was different now. It carried weight. It carried memory. It carried the echo of humanity. Lyra stared at the dark shapes of the human ships. Her heart shook with fear, but also with respect. She whispered softly, They do not fight like others. They fight like the void itself, endless, eternal, unyielding. The crew bowed their heads, some in defeat, some in reverence, for they all knew history had changed this day. The Sarathi would never forget the echoes. They would never forget the silence that bent their weapons, and they would never forget the humans, not for their fire, not for their strength, but for their refusal to stop. The void returned to stillness, the stars burning cold and silent. But to those who survived, the silence was never empty again, because once the void had echoed with power, once it had echoed with humanity,